All right, all praise to the Most High Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shai. Double honor to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Enough respect to the brothers teaching the truth worldwide. This lesson is going to be entitled, Christians Don't Know the Bible. The New Testament Interprets Itself. And these are the tools that I'm going to be using for this lesson. 2 cookout wrappers and 2 Bibles I got right here. Alright, and you're going to see the reason why I got these cookout wrappers, so stay tuned. We're going to get into it. So the story goes as follows. One day I'm at work, and his wife is off day, and she decided to bring me lunch to work and come have lunch with me. So she brought cookout, and we was basically having cookout nuggets, in these little pouches and whatnot. And as we were sitting there eating the cookout nuggets, I looked on the back and I noticed that it had scriptures written on the back, right? That one had Psalms 19:14. This one had Galatians 6:10. So as we sit there eating and talking, I'm just noticing this. And then she also had some pouches of these, and then, which was pretty much the same. Now I think if you get a drink, a milkshake, or whatever, the cup will have John 3:16, if I'm not mistaken. And you all you Israelite brothers and sisters out there know, and you gotta excuse my hands, I've been at work all day. Of course my hands, wash my hands over and over. But as you know, the Christian doctrine is heavy on John 3:16, and they also have these other scriptures here posted, on the back. So I took my phone out and I started looking into the scriptures because I wondered what they were and what they said, So we're gonna get into it, and we're gonna see what these scriptures say. Stay tuned. So from the first cookout wrapper, it had Galatians chapter 6. You can see it right here. And verse 10, and it reads, "As we have therefore opportunity, let us do good unto all men, especially unto them who are of the household of faith." And if you know anything about the so-called Christians, they love to look for scriptures that say all men, all men, all men, right? Now this is a classic. When you take one scripture out of thin air and you post it someplace, that's not reading in context like they always say. If you read the book of Galatians in context, you find out quite a different thing, because these Galatians that this is written to is not talking about the people from Galatia, and we'll show you that in the scriptures. So let's go to Galatians 1 to see, if we can get more background on this. All right. So this is Galatians chapter 1, verse 1. You see at the top, the epistle, which epistle means letter. Epistle of Paul the apostle to the Galatians, but not to all of the Galatians. Listen to this. Galatians 1 verse 1. Paul, an apostle, not of men neither by man, but by Yahweh Shai Hamashiach and the Most High the Father, who raised him from the dead, and all the brethren which are with me unto the churches of Galatia. Who are these churches of Galatia? Who these people is talking about? It's not to all the Galatians, right? It's unto the churches of Galatia. Let's get a couple of precepts to find out who this is to. Now first, if you go to the book of Peter, the first epistle of Peter, which epistle is a letter, it says what? 1 Peter 1:1, Peter, an apostle of Yahweh Shai, to the strangers scattered throughout Pontus, Galatia. You see that? Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, and Bithynia. Who are these strangers that are scattered right here? The Galatians are mentioned among these scattered. Let's find out who the scattered are. The epistle of James, chapter 1, verse 1. James, a servant of the Most High and of the Lord Yahweh Shai Hamashiach, to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad, greeting. My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptations. So James called these scattered 12 tribes his brethren. These were Israelites, right? So the scattered are Israelites. You see? So when you read in the book of Galatians, it talks about, and also in the book of Peter, and we're going to go back and look at that again, it says to the scattered, right? The elect that are scattered. We got to find out who that is, who it's talking about. Stay tuned. So back in 1 Peter 1:1, what did it say in the book of James? And to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad, greetings. So here again in 1 Peter 1:1, Peter, an apostle of Yahweh Shai Hamashiach, to the strangers scattered throughout Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, and Asia. So those of Galatia were scattered there. It's not to all the Galatians, but those that are scattered there. If you're from Galatia, that's your land, you're not scattered there, you just live there. If you're scattered there, you are in fact the Israelites. To the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad, greeting, right? Let's read this again. 1 Peter 1:1. Peter, an apostle of Yahushua HaMashiach, to the strangers scattered throughout Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, and Asia, elect according to the foreknowledge of the Most High, the Father. Wait a minute. Did it just say elect? We got to find out who that elect is. So far, we see that the Galatians, that the book of Galatians was written to, are none other than scattered Israelites in the land of Galatia, right? So when you read in Galatians 6 and 10, and it says those that are of the household of faith, who was it talking about? Who was that book of Galatians written to? It was written to Israelites. But let's first find out who this elect is real quick. All right? To find out who the elect is, we've come to Isaiah chapter 45 and verse 3. And I will give thee the treasures of darkness and hidden riches of secret places, that thou mayest know that I, the Lord, Yahweh, which called thee by thy name, am the God of Israel. For Jacob my servant's sake, and Israel mine elect, I have even called thee by thy name. I have surnamed thee, though thou hast not known me. So it's very clear that the elect is Jacob. Only Jacob is ever called the elect in the scriptures. You see, the elect come out of Jacob. Jacob is the elect nation, and among that elect nation you have elect Israelites, or those that are of the elect, the church as it were. See it? So back in 1 Peter we found out that the Galatians right there, all those people, Peter, an apostle of Yahushua, to the strangers scattered throughout Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, and Bithynia, just like in the book of James, to the 12 tribes scattered abroad. And here it says elect. We went to Isaiah 45 and 3 and 4 and found out who that elect was. Those are also Israelites. So over here in Galatians, these Galatians that the book of Galatians was written to, in chapter 1, it said what? To all the churches in Galatia. We found out that those Galatians are scattered in Galatia. If you read Galatians chapter 4, you find out further, verse 1, now I say that the heir, as long as he is a child, differeth nothing from a servant, though he be Lord of all, but is under tutors and governors until the time appointed of the Father. Even so we, when we were children, were in bondage under the elements of the world. But when the fullness of time was come, God sent forth his Son, the Most High sent forth his Son, made of a woman, made under the law, to redeem them that were under the law, that we might receive the adoption of sons. Who is this talking about? Why do Christians read this and put themselves there and say that like the book of Galatians was written to them, the book of Peter, the book of James? It wasn't written to you. It was written to Israelites. Let me read it again. To redeem them that were under the law, that we might receive the adoption of sons. Christians often say, well, I'm under the new covenant. I can be adopted into the covenant of God. Well, that's not here. We already found out who the Galatians were, right? We found out that the Galatians were Israelites. But as you read it again, but when the fullness of time was come, the Most High sent forth his Son, made of a woman, made under the law, to redeem them that were under the law. Who was the law given to? The Israelites. That we might receive the adoption of sons. Let's get a precept from Romans. Stay tuned. This is the book of Romans chapter 9 and verse 1. And the key word we saw in Galatians was adoption. Romans 9 and 1. I say the truth in the anointed, I lie not. My conscience also bearing me witness in the Holy Spirit, that I have great heaviness and continual sorrow in my heart. For I wish that myself were accursed from the anointed for my brethren, my kinsmen, according to the flesh, who are Israelites, to whom pertaineth the adoption. Did we just not read in the Galatians that it talked about, right, to redeem them that were under the law, that we might receive the adoption? Who's the we? Who are the Galatians saying we? They were Israelites. We found that out in Peter and in James. Who are Israelites, to whom pertaineth the adoption and the glory and the covenants and the giving of the law, to redeem them that were under the law, and the giving of the law and the service of the Most High, and the promises, whose are the fathers, and of whom, as concerning the flesh, Christ, people say Christ, but it's anointed, or Yahweh came, Hamashiach came, who is over all, Yahweh blessed forever, amen. You see that? So it told you plainly. So there you go again. Another strike against the so-called Christians. You don't know the Bible. The book of Romans said the adoption pertains only to Israelites. And we look in the Galatians, and it lines up with what's written in Peter and in James. The New Testament interprets itself. Let's find out more about Romans, because this is now the book of Romans, So we gotta read, find out who the book of Romans was to. Stay tuned. 1 verse 1. The epistle of Paul to the Romans. The epistle of Paul, the apostle, to the Romans, but not to all the Romans. Listen, Paul, Romans 1:1. Paul is servant of Yahweh Hamashiach, called to be an apostle, separated unto the Most High. You see who that is writing this? Let's jump to verse 6. Among whom are ye also the called of Yahweh Hamashiach, to all that be in Rome, beloved of the Most High, called to be saints. Woo! Called to be saints. So this book of Romans was written only to the saints. We got to find out who the saints are now, which we already know. Pursuing the Romans 9, Galatians, Peter, and James, all those were to Israelites. But who are these mysterious saints? Let's see if we can find out. Stay tuned. Again, this is the book of Psalms 148, and verse 13. Just tell you who the saints are. Let them praise the name of the Lord, for his name alone is excellent. His name is Yahweh. His glory is above the earth and heaven. He also exalteth the horn of his people, the praise of all his saints, even of the children of Israel. A people, one people, a people near unto him, praise ye the Lord. So the saints in Romans were Israelites that it was talking about. So it's consistent with what we read in Galatians and in Romans and in James and in Peter. All the same people. As is that elect that we read about as well. Okay? Let's go back to Galatians now so we know who all that's to. So back in Galatians chapter 4 and 3, even so verse 4, but when the fullness of time was come, the Most High sent forth his Son, made of a woman, made under the law, to redeem them that were under the law, that we might receive the adoption of sons. And these were Israelites. When we go back to Peter, we find out something curious. 1 Peter 1:1, Peter, an apostle of Yahweh Hamashiach, to the strangers scattered throughout Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, and Bithynia, elect according to the foreknowledge of the Most High the Father. Now, we read that the Galatians, it says right here to the Galatia, the book of Galatians, and those scattered in the book of James, all those are Israelites. If you go to the book of Acts, which we will do now, you will see it all come together. All this is talking to Israelites, even the Romans. Let's go look that up. And pardon me, it's the book of Acts. The book of Acts chapter 2 and verse 5 says, and there were dwelling at Jerusalem Jews, devout men, out of every nation under heaven. Right? Now when this was noised abroad, the multitude came together and were confounded. So don't lose sight of that. These people that are about to be named were dwelling at Jerusalem Jews, devout men, out of every nation under heaven. Now when this was noised abroad, the multitude came together and were confounded, because that every man heard them speak in his own language. And they were all amazed and marveled, saying one to another, behold, are not all these which speak Galileans? And how hear we every man in our tongue wherein we were born? Parthians and Medes and Elamites and dwellers in Mesopotamia and in Judea and Cappadocia and Pontus and Asia, Phrygia and Pamphylia, in Egypt and in the parts of Libya about Cyrene, the strangers of Rome. We already got that, who the Romans were. They were Israelites. That's what we was talking about. Not to all the Romans, which were Edomites, but to Israelites among the Romans, those scattered. Just like in the book of James. Strangers of Rome, Jews and proselytes, Cretes and Arabians, we do hear them speak in our tongues the wonderful works of the Most High. There it is plainly. All these scattered people, just like in the book of James, as it talked about in the opening of Peter, These were all Israelites. The book of Romans, right, 9 told you to redeem who are Israelites, to whom pertaineth the adoption. These are all the Gentiles that are adopted into that covenant, or adopted into the household of the Most High, just as the Galatians. The New Testament interprets itself, right? So that's complete. You see? So the book of Galatians, as we already broke down and read about it, just as these people were scattered in the book of James, what it talked about in the book of opening of James, are Israelites. I hope you see that clearly. So going back to the cookout rappers now, we can tie it all together because like I said, I saw this one, right? I saw this and it had Galatians 6 and 10 on it. Then I saw this other one that says Psalms 19 and 14. And I wondered, Psalms 19 and 14, what does that verse say? Let's find out what it says. This is now the book of Psalms, chapter 19 and verse 14. It says, let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my redeemer. Now you look at the word redeemer right there, right? Seems anybody can read the Bible, they can pluck a verse out of thin air and say, my redeemer, my strength, right? Just as they did with the books of Galatians, Romans, Peter, right? All those different books, and even in Acts, they put themselves there, but who is the Lord going to redeem? Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, Yahweh, my strength and my redeemer. Whose redeemer is the Most High? Whose redeemer is Yahweh and Yahweh Shai from the cookout rapper? This is going to be the book of Isaiah, my raggedy 1611 Bible. The book of Isaiah, chapter 59 and verse 20. And the Redeemer shall come to Zion, and unto them that turn from transgression in Jacob, saith the Lord. Wait a minute, Redeemer. Did we read about that just now in Psalms? Did we also hear mention of the Redeemer in Galatians? Over here, before we go there, let's finish reading it. And the Redeemer shall come to Zion, unto them that turn from transgression in Jacob, saith the Lord. As for me, this is my covenant with them, saith the Lord. With who? With Jacob and Zion. And the Redeemer shall come to Zion, unto them that turn from transgression in Jacob, saith the Lord. As for me, this is my covenant with them, saith the Lord. My spirit that is upon thee, and my words which I have put in thy mouth, shall not depart out of thy mouth, nor out of the mouth of thy seed, nor out of the mouth of thy seed, saith the Lord, from henceforth and forever. So the Redeemer is only going to Zion? Only to Jacob? Why do Edomites that own restaurants post on their things scriptures that have nothing to do with them? Because this clearly says, my Redeemer. But this says, and the Redeemer shall come to Zion, unto them that turn from transgression in Jacob, saith the Lord. And in the column, a precept, Romans 11:26. But we already been over the book of Romans a little bit, in book of Romans, and we found out that the book of Romans was written to Israelites. What could that mean? Before we go there, we're going to go to Galatians, because Galatians mentioned the Redeemer as well, to redeem them, right? So plainly it says the Redeemer is going to come to Zion and Jacob. And so Psalms 19 and 14 is not talking about the whole world, it's talking about Jacob. Back again in Galatians chapter 4 and verse 4. But when the fullness of time was come, the Most High sent forth his Son, made of a woman, made under the law, to redeem them that were under the law, that we might receive the adoption of sons. We read about that in Romans already. The adoption is only for Israelites. Now we get redeemed in the book of Galatians, and written to the churches in Galatia, which are Israelites. They're scattered. First Peter mentioned these Galatians that scattered. The Romans are in that same number. They're all Israelites. To redeem them that were under the law, that we might receive the adoption of sons. That's powerful. We just read that in Isaiah 59 and 20. Did we not? And the Lord shall redeem them that are in Zion and Jacob, right? That's what it, roughly paraphrasing it. Now for the last precept, it sent us to Romans 11:26. This is the book of Romans, chapter 11 and verse 26. And it reads, and so, we got to read verse 25. For I will not, brethren, that ye should be ignorant of this mystery, lest ye should be wise in your own conceits, that blindness in part is happened to Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles be come in. And so all Israel shall be saved. Right. The Gentiles, Israelite foreigners, scattered abroad, the Galatians, the Romans, right, that we read about, the saints, the churches in Galatia, the churches in Rome, all those in the book of Acts, those are Gentiles, which are Israelites from every nation under heaven. Blindness in part has happened to Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles be come in. And so all Israel shall be saved, the olive tree and the wild olive tree. As it is written, there shall come out of Zion the deliverer. We read about Zion in Isaiah 59 and 20. The Redeemer shall come to Zion, and to them that turn from transgression in Jacob. And so all Israel shall be saved. As it is written, there shall come out of Zion the deliverer, and shall turn away ungodliness from Jacob. For this is my covenant. Wait a minute. We read the covenant in Romans. Who are Israelites, to whom pertaineth the adoption and the covenant, right? For this is my covenant unto them. Under who? Under Zion. Under Jacob. For this is my covenant unto them, when I will take away their sins. And you can see in the column, it gives you a precept, Isaiah 59, which is Isaiah 59 verse 20. And we just read that 2 scriptures ago. So it's all there. If you can't get this, the Most High is not dealing with you. As we told you, look at these rappers you see here, Psalms 19 and 14, right? Also, Galatians 6 and 10. Those that are the household of faith, they're Israelites. You see it? Plain. We went through all kinds of scriptures. And like we said, these Christians, they don't know the Bible. The New Testament interprets itself. Plain and simple. So that's going to do it. Lord willing, you found this lesson edifying. As we always tell you, this Bible is only for Jacob. You found out in these scriptures, you know, that the Galatians, those scattered abroad, the Romans, those written about in the book of Peter and James, the redeemed of the Lord are all Israelites. Even the grafted in and the adopted are all Israelites. You see, the Lord will give you lessons in the craziest places, man, on a cookout rapper. So like I said, Lord willing, this was edifying and you learned something. With that, I want to give all praise to Yahweh and his son Yahweh Shai. Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai. Double honor to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Enough respect to the brothers teaching the truth all over the earth. This is only for the Israelites. So-called Christians don't understand the Bible. The New Testament interprets itself, right? And that's it. So we'll see you again soon with another lesson, Lord willing. This is my second time recording this, blaming on the spiritual demon Satan, but it finally came out, and that's it. So we'll see you again soon with another lesson, Lord willing. So-called Christians don't know the Bible because they're Edomites, and the wicked shall not understand. Shalom.